We're going to do this on a regular basis. We did this back in December, creating a community of technologists, enthusiasts on NFT, blockchain, Web3. So today we have a couple of panels. One is going to be on making Web3 digestible. The next one will be Splinterland's Path to Success. Then at 2, we're going to have AAA Legal Takes. After that, we're going to have another panel on, actually this is a speaker on crypto economics. The next panel will be, we originally were going to do current and future state of blockchain governance, but we're going to have a community-driven session just to talk about new and up-and-coming things that you guys are doing. Feel free to come up, whoever wants to chat about their projects. And then after that, we're going to finalize it with the women of NFT, and then happy hour thereafter. So a little bit about EisnerAmper. EisnerAmper is one of the top 10 accounting and advisory firms in the country. EisnerAmper Digital, I lead digital transformation for EisnerAmper Digital. We work with everything around emerging technologies, AI, automation, data analytics, a lot of system selection engagements, business technology solutions. So a few of us are going to be moderating some of these panels. I'll be monitoring the women in NFT. Erik, raise your hand. He's going to be monitoring the next panel. And Joey, if you could raise your hand. Joey will be monitoring which one?
The AAA Legal Takes.
There we go. All right. So without further ado, I want to have Erik come up with his panelists. Thank you.
Nice. So we do. So we only have the one mic, so we're just going to have to pass it down and forth as we go through, and then we'll kick off. All right. So digesting Web3. So I'm Erik Caputo. 6 months ago when we had this, I was actually a panelist. I was not working for Eisner. Recently got hired back in January, so now part of the EA Digital team and moderator. So I'm going to kick it off. So our panel on digesting Web3 is going to be, I think each one of you have very unique different backgrounds within the Web3 space. I know personally each one of you and how long you've been in the Web3 space, so I think that this will be a very interesting panel. And to kick it off, right, we have Cooper. So Cooper is co-founder of LinksDAO. He also has his own consulting firm where he works with 11 Group, which is based in Miami, and then Warner Brothers DC, and Bentley. So has some pretty high profile clients, worked with a number of bigger companies in the space, and LinksDAO, which as of a month ago purchased their first golf course in Scotland. And that is a golf-based NFT program. So let's kick it off to you. I gave you just my introduction. Why don't you give us a little bit about how you started in the space and where you are now?
Sure, thanks Erik. I bought my first Bitcoin in 2013, thought the technology was really interesting. But I sold it for a $100 profit, thought I was a genius. So that's pretty much been my experience in the space up until this Web3 kind of paradigm shift where it became less about the crypto and coins and more about community. So my experience has mostly been focusing on the community aspect since 2020, 2021, utilizing the tools of the trade, Discord specifically, Twitter, social media marketing, that's where my background is, but connecting people around these sometimes financialized assets that allow people to have shared interests and find their groups to connect with has been just a really great pleasure for me over this time, whether it be through Warner Brothers and DC Comics, Batman or Superman fandom, or sports like golf. Links has been just an incredible year and a half, culminating so far in the purchase of our first golf course in Scotland. But we've had some incredible partnerships with folks like Callaway, Bridgestone, Topgolf, Cobra Puma, and yeah, we're growing to about 10,000 members at this point. So it's been a great journey.
Massive. Suarez. So Suarez, me and him have actually been to a lot of events together this year, which is funny because we keep running into each other. Suarez is a big player within the NFTPhilly market. And then you've also been a part of Starbucks and their whole rollout of Starbucks Odyssey. So why don't you give a bit about your background and then where you're at now?
Yeah, so I'm Suarez, Michael Suarez. I'm the Starbucks Odyssey community team. So they're heading their on-chain rewards program, followed up by their Genesis program. So that's converting to a Starbucks. You use the app, you get rewards and stars. So that's what we work on, but they're on-chain. It's labeled as Odyssey. And I started back in crypto 2017, trying to make $1 million in a day. That's been my journey as well, as we all probably have been. And got to NFTs. I really like the social aspect of it. NFTs, digital collectibles. We call them Starbucks stamps. That's really a passion of mine, community, bringing people together. That's why I'm so involved in NFTPhilly, because I really enjoy the IRL events. Getting to know people, the people that come through there. Same thing with the Starbucks Odyssey team, the community we build, the super fans, those things. So that's my passion, my background.
Great, thank you. And then Scott, so unique thing about Scott, when I first started getting into Web3, me and him actually had a video call almost like a year and a half ago before I even knew who he was. So I know Scott's been in this space, he's been a thought leader for a while. Scott, you are the CEO of ComplexLabs. You have multiple companies that were in the Web3 space. And why don't you give us a bit about how you started, where you're at now. I think you have a depth of experience here.
Yeah, thanks, Erik. So like most of you, I kind of just fell into Web3 in one fashion or another. Back then, it was just called blockchain. I was at a poker game, and someone was talking about Bitcoin mining and how they wanted to, explore that opportunity. I got involved. I started sourcing power and infrastructure around the world. Found myself in the Arctic Circle, where there was no sun, eating elegant reindeer, and was at a pivotal time in my life where I came from a traditional finance background and really fell in love with the space. From there, I started, I was the head of community and marketing for a company called Flexa, led their security token offering back around the tail end of the ICO boom. And really from there, fell in love with the idea of community and what Web3 was becoming. Started consulting for billion-dollar luxury brands all the way down to startups around strategy. And now I built ComplexLabs, where we're focused on helping Web2 organizations build and develop use cases that actually make sense in Web3.
Great, so we're going to start on the left. We're just going to roll with whoever has the mic at the end of our little panel, we'll start the next question as we go through it, right? So Scott, starting off with you, you've been a part of DAOs, you've been a part of being a consultant, you now are the CEO of a company that's helping Web2 companies move into Web3. So what challenges, and I think it's definitely changed over the last year and how the ecosystem has changed, but what challenges have you faced back then to where we are now? Are you still seeing the same issues in terms of adoption, in terms of use cases? What's better about being in a bear market versus a bull market? Let's dig into that.
Yeah, a lot there. So I think onboarding has always been the biggest challenge in the space. Previously, it might be a wallet or an exchange that you would think of as onboarding. Now, I think we're moving into a world where folks like Starbucks and Reddit are developing consumer-facing applications which are onboarding people into the world of Web3 in a more expected manner. I like to, look at the status quo. If you're not better than the status quo, then you really aren't going to get the adoption that you want. So I think things like account abstraction and other types of low barrier wallet solutions are a step in the right direction. But I still think we do a really bad job in terms of onboarding people into this space. I think the dirty little secret is no one really cares about the technology. They just want a better experience. So if we start prioritizing that rather than the technology, I think we'll start to see more success and more adoption. And unfortunately, previously that was an issue and it still seems to remain an issue today.
Yeah, with passing it over to Suarez here, what I think is really interesting with what Starbucks is doing for onboarding is kind of hitting the masses. It's already attacking their consumer and their audience, and it's doing it in a way that's almost like a badge system, which I feel like just the general public understands and accepts and acknowledges that, okay, I got this badge for doing X, Y, and Z, but now they're actually NFTs, so it's almost onboarding but sneakily. So what can you give about the details on that?
Yeah, that's the biggest question there, getting everybody to do something that you want them to do in a smooth way. I think we're all here because we know being on chain tokens do more. They just do more. I don't need to convince people or users that it does more. We know it does more. So the idea that we have to be focused on is how do we transition in a smooth manner for them to just be engaged and get more of what they want, which is experiences in art and what we've recognized. The Genesis Starbucks Loyalty Rewards Program has recognized that team. So from our standpoint, all we're trying to do is make that experience as smooth as possible. I didn't pick the word stamps, but if you look at the history of stamps, people collected stamps forever. So that might be something that we used to our advantage because it's easy and people understand digital versus just physical. So we just named it digital collectibles and their stamps. So that's how we flowed that in. We don't really talk about much about on-chain what it does. If people want to discuss in Discord, they of course do. We give them a channel to do that because there will be some discussions on that. People want to dive deep, but it's not for the masses. And then we did not want to interrupt our Genesis rewards program because for numerous amounts of reasons, but we left them alone and we opened up the wait list for people who wanted to sign on so we can create this beta that we're in now. So the biggest thing is just making sure that people don't know about on-chain. They just able to plug in and do what they want to do, which is, in our case, drink more coffee, meet more people like them, and have those type of experiences and be rewarded for it. And not just product discounts, but experiences. So.
Yeah, and I think between what Scott said and what you just said really resonates is people don't necessarily care about the technology, but it's how it's being presented to them. If it's super easy, it's just, this is it, this is how we use it, as long as onboarding is seamless. Now to kind of kick it over to Links, right? So Links started a year ago, something a little over a year ago. So, you're in an industry which is historically, I would say, golfing isn't necessarily what you would say on the cusp of innovation, but now kind of putting this idea of a membership that is digitally, it's a digital asset, and then you have access to all this stuff, and the success in Links, especially now, which is still successful in a bear market, is very interesting. How would you say you've onboarded people when you started, which was a bull market, to now still staying sustainable, purchasing your golf course last month in this bear market, and then moving forward again, like how are you looking to get more people involved and continue to build out that community?
Yeah, I think when we launched a year and a half ago was the absolute peak if you look at the chart of new wallets being created on the Ethereum network. So tremendous amount of luck there in timing to have that happen for our initial membership set. We have seen some fluctuations in price, but I think we've tried to design a community that cares about the golf and not about speculating on the tokens, which I think has given us longevity through the bear market, with the addition of adding utility along the way, things people can do because we're centered around an activity. It's very social. People go out and they play the game with each other. I think designing communities, you have to have a game that people play, an objective, right? And we have our game, which is golf, but we're most importantly, as a DAO, giving the community a voice and a reason to continue to come back and engage, not just to use their benefits or get a discount at Callaway, but to debate the culture of the future of the golf club and everything else. So I think we've had those entry points a little bit different. People are looking to make a quick buck in blockchain, right? We're not the place for them. But if you're looking to rally around a hobby and interest and have conversations about kind of the future of the game and how we can be an innovator in a place that has been traditionally pretty closed off and stuffy, I think Links is the place to do that, and that's given us some sustainability. Additionally, so we had our initial sale of 9,000 tokens. We recently launched a Web 2.5, we're calling it. I know Reddit was mentioned a little bit earlier. Kind of, you pay with a credit card, $200 a year. You can access the community, you can access some of the benefits of kind of a lower entry level tier. And then on the back end, there are tokens and kind of badges that you can earn or participate in that enhance the experience. So people really just want to be a part of something. They want to be a part of the community, and I think we've all kind of agreed the technology enables that and enhances that, but it doesn't need to be front and center, especially when coming together around something like that.
Got it. Now I'm going to push this question as well. We're talking about the masses. Now let's talk about Web2 companies, right? So with Links, you're now reaching out to traditional Web2 companies to be a part of your organization in some sort or in some sense, which, okay, you have a Web2 golf organization, and of course you're reaching out to individuals, but even with your client arm and what you're doing for Bentley, what you're doing for Warner Brothers, how are you onboarding organizations as well? Are you working with them to, you're doing strategy and community, but how do you find these individuals, especially in the bear market? Are companies not looking anymore? Like, what is your take? I'm excited to hear what Scott has to say about that as well.
I think we've still definitely seen a lot of companies interested in participating and utilizing blockchain technology to have a better relationship with their customers, learn more about them, and kind of foster these communities. I think it certainly has dropped off a little bit, not necessarily because of the bear market, but maybe because of some of the causes of our current bear market. FTX, same like free. There's a stigma a little bit around crypto right now that when you're not having the front and center, can kind of help with a lot of these conversations to bring partners and businesses in. We frame Links as a golf company, not a crypto company, and that helps with working with, golf. There's a lot of Web0, right? We bought a course built in 1905. There's the owners of that course didn't care at all about the crypto. But yeah, it's a grind. There's a lot of education. I think what we're doing here today helps a lot with breaking that stigma and opening up the possibilities.
Sure. Now with Suarez, right, when we talk about the way that Starbucks is kind of onboarding their consumers is very seamless, but how do they look at scale? Like, where are they going with this? After Odyssey, is there plans to continue to develop? How are they going to build out their entire Web3 structure? Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, that one's pretty complex because there's a lot of things involved in that. But the goal is, of course, if you look at the Genesis Starbucks Rewards program, the app, if you're into Starbucks, they have about 30 to 35 million active users in about a 90-day span. So we already have that pool, but it's merging that over, and of course engagement is huge. So that will come naturally because people, as we're very thoughtful in the beginning with beta, people start to recognize it and learn about it. Right now, it's not advertised. It's not anywhere. You won't ever see it really in front pages of Starbucks. We know of it because it's one of the bigger players, but our ecosystem is very small compared to everything else, especially in the Web2 market. But once Starbucks decides to open up the gates, then it's pretty much everybody who's already in the Genesis program is gonna merge right in, because it would be maybe not day one actively in the app, but it would be merged eventually. That would be the thought process. And when that happens, obviously there'll be new problems to work through. So it might be easier on our side than everybody else because we already have that pool. But I wanted to touch a little bit on collaboration, because I think on-chain gives the ability to have ownership and collab with people in a different way, just like LinksDAO is doing different things, different companies. We are able to create brand value through artists that Starbucks has access to and have built and done artwork for Starbucks. So we just launched our Jade Purple Brown artwork, and we dropped it to all of the Odyssey members in one shot. That's just not possible any other way. So those are the really, really cool things that we can do. And I think once a Genesis user sees something like that happen, it's mind-blowing. And I think that's where the future lies.
When we talk about next level marketing and being able to just push to any order that you have, that has a lot of value in it. And even for Starbucks to collect the data of their consumers by knowing which wallet is holding what, et cetera, making them collectible, and then potentially being able to target and advertise to them, I think is definitely a business use case going forward. Now, Scott, to kind of double back, because you're also in this world of taking Web2 companies to Web3. Now that we're in a bear market, the bull's over, there's not as exciting companies that are like, put me into Web3, how do I do there? What is your business outreach, and how do you onboard companies? Is it they come to you still, or are you now reaching out to companies that say, hey, this is a model that we think would work with your business, let's move that forward, or how does that pitching work, and how do you onboard?
Yeah, so I don't think the industry did itself any favors during this NFT kind of bull over the last few years. A lot of Web2 industries that were interested in Web3 kind of got a bad taste, whether they were told to sell collectibles to their community or launch an NFT project. A lot of them are somewhat gun shy now. I think the way that I approach business development now, business development is specific use cases, and telling them how I would use NFTs, how I would use this technology to help them reach whatever their KPI may be, right? So you really need to take a different approach and say, understand their business, understand where they're trying to improve their business, and how NFTs or Web3 technology can be used to do that. A lot of that is in incredibly long sales cycles, unfortunately. Right now, you look at someone like Starbucks and their Odyssey program, and correct me if I'm speaking out of turn, but it's a case study they're developing. They have enough money, they have enough resources to test out a case study with their existing community. That's expensive. That's time consuming. Most people don't have 30 million active users they can, pull on a beta pilot and try this stuff out. One thing that my company tries to do is take that piece of the technology and say, okay, we have the tech, let's make it cheaper and more affordable for you to develop these use cases and these case studies so that, if it works, we can deploy it a lot quicker. That way it's not as expensive, not as time consuming. So when I'm doing biz dev, a lot of that is having initial conversations, understanding what their objectives are, and tying that into a library of experiences and case studies that we've already developed, and kind of tweaking them, personalizing them, customizing them so they can fit their particular use case.
Yeah, that's good. Now, I really want this panel to have actionable takeaways after every subsection. So right now we're talking about onboarding. If you could give a very succinct, maybe 1 to 2 lines of lessons learned up until this date that could help the next person that's kind of coming up or still building in the space, what is some advice that you would give?
In terms of helping
General onboarding and in your use case, possibly business development, and how with your consulting company, what are things that you wish you knew 3 months ago, a year ago? I guess just any piece of advice that could help somebody today.
Yeah, I think the future is consumer-facing apps like Starbucks Odyssey, like Reddit. Reddit onboarded 10 million people to Web3. Not many projects have done that, and they did that in a way that was more Web2 experience-wise than what we would like, but it works. So I would say experience first is probably the number one takeaway.
I like that. Suarez, same question to you. Over the last year, what is one actionable takeaway that you could give where you're at right now that you think somebody should know?
I think rewards programs is going to be a thing, and digital collectibles on chain. I think it's going to be really big. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of companies who are NFT natives shift over to membership reward programs. So look into that. Not only from a business standpoint, getting more users to purchase more transactions, things of that nature, but you're going to be able to create more super fans, and especially now with so many people opting out of sharing their information, it's going to be even harder for you to market to people the way we have been doing the last couple of years. So I'm looking to rewards programs, those mechanics, and on the tax side too. So if you are building a program, an ecosystem, it's a taxable thing. If you give somebody an NFT and it's worth X amount of dollars, US dollars, or whatever monetary value it has, if they sell that, there's taxes there. So if there's a redemption or things of that nature, at least if they use it from their sense, they're not going to get taxed on that. So that would be my tip.
Yeah, onboarding is really, really tricky, right? I think you have to find the right entry points and personas and give the user what they want. I mean, it varies so much project to project and person to person. And that's why I think first impressions are so important, having a human first impression. It's a lot of hand-to-hand combat with it in Web3, but it makes a massive difference to find out what those personas are, what those users want and need. With links, we have people who are hunting for discounts, where we have people who are looking for global course access, and we have people who are looking to just find friends in and around their local area, like to play golf with, right? And each of those people need a different solution and a different experience, but you never know just from their username or their email address. So that's where I think you can really connect with people and figure out how to solve the real problems that people are experiencing.
Great. So this next area, these two questions kind of go hand in hand, so I'm just going to combine them, which is going to be, if you were to go up to somebody on the street who had no idea about what you're doing in the space, how do you explain it to them? How do you explain it to your friends and family when you go home for the weekend or whatever the holidays may be? If you were to dumb it down to the most simplest form of introductory onboarding, this is what it is, this is what I do, and this is how I'm building my business or links, or in Scott's case, this is how it can affect your business. How would you kind of do that?
Yeah, the short version is I work for a golf company, not a crypto company. That goes over a lot better these days. But it's ultimately Amazon Prime, MX Platinum for golfers, but with community voice, community input, community voting. So that's the 10-second version that you have to folks.
Yeah. Suarez, how would you define what you're doing for community, what you're doing for Starbucks in a way that makes sense, it's digestible, it's comparable to something that you would see in like Web2?
Yeah, so to like my family and friends, I don't explain anything because they don't get. I just tell them I work for Starbucks. They think I'm a barista. I swear to God. So I just leave it at that. But no, if I'm like somebody's actually more curious, asking a question in response, then I go a little deeper. I would probably mention to them like how on-chain works. Digital versus physical. I just usually ask them like, say your house were to burn down. If you horrible thing, but if you had the option of saving all the pictures in your home or all the pictures on your phone, which one would you pick? And they would 10 times out of 10 pick their phone. And that's a digital portion. And that on chain, that gives you a lot more than you would have for the physical stuff. So that's kind of how I explain to them at the simplest term. And then for like the Starbucks sense, I just explain to them that we're creating digital collectibles so they can be rewarded with experiences, not just product discount.
Yeah, this is a tough one. It sometimes it's very difficult to describe what we do in this space, especially to people who are not familiar with it. So at ComplexLabs, we build experiences. Oftentimes they're gamified. Most of the time they're in the real world. And we use NFTs as a way to keep score. We put proof of actions, proof of certain attributes or things that people earn on an NFT. And then we allow that brand to then tie rewards, loyalty, access, permission, whatever it might be to that. And we build the infrastructure as a service so that they don't have to.
That was clean. That was pretty concise. Now, I do have, and we're going to go back to this in terms of before we go into short-term future, long-term future. When we talk about NFTs, my personal take is I don't like the term NFTs. I feel like it has a bad connotation to it. Now, in all of your perspectives, I use digital assets. I think that's a way to classify everything that we have. NFTs, Web3, whether it be blockchain, everything that's on chain now. How can we, and this is wasn't in our cards. This is a random throw at you guys. How can you communicate, instead of saying NFTs, how would you communicate blockchain? How would you communicate it in a way where somebody doesn't have the connotation? Because I do think where we're at in the market, especially in this bear market, especially with FTX and everything that's happening, even with the SEC right now and all the regulations that are in input, how can we communicate going from this point on forward that doesn't necessarily have the baggage of the verbiage that has been used up until this date?
Yeah, I think it comes down to context. It depends on who you're talking with. It depends on the industry that they represent and the particular background. If you're talking something about loyalty, maybe an NFT is indicative of a loyalty program. If you're talking to someone that's in the identity space, like NFT or verifiable credentials could be great use case for identity. So it really depends, and you have to be able to figure that out on the fly, and then use the verbiage that's native to them. A lot of times, the language we use in this space can exclude people because they don't understand some of the things that we say and the way that we kind of frame things. So you really have to understand your target audience, the language they use. And
Now that you think is like, this is a use case that matters and we should continue to push this.
yeah, I really think it depends on, again, context, the entity that you're talking to. Like, blockchain alone should be thought of as like a thing that we need to get into, right? Like a company shouldn't say, oh, we want to get into blockchain. Blockchain should say, or a company should say, we really want to push our marketing efforts. How can blockchain be a part of our existing infrastructure and technology stack? And how can we use this more effectively? Where can we save? Where can we engage? Where can we retain? How can we use this technology in a more meaningful way? So I really think that the next year, 2 years is really going to be about case study development, figuring out what we can do, how can it be repeatable, how can we measure it, because that's more familiar to the world of Web2. And if you can show them that, hey, this $1 million investment is going to return $3 million to you over the period of 6 to 8 months, they're just going to write the check. They don't care about the money, and they have the existing pool or community or audience or whatever you want to call it to do that. They just need proof, because ultimately what we've shown them over the last couple cycles is not sustainable. So we need to build things that are sustainable. And again, that's very industry dependent.
Feeding off of that, it's exactly that. Just not every business is to be on chain. There's tons of businesses that should not be on chain. And if it makes sense in context for your ecosystem business, by all means, dive right in. And it's going to make sense if you're going to make money. I mean, you have to stay in business. So like from the Starbucks standpoint, a lot of people ask, well, why? Why do we need it? The biggest reason is because from Genesis loyalty rewards program, it was incremental spend that gave you as a user incremental stars that you would in turn got rewarded discounted product. So there's not really an incentive from the business side to continue rewarding that cycle, because that user is going to be purchasing that coffee or whatever it may be, drink or product, and they might not want discounted product because they're going to do it anyway. They want other things. They want experiences. They want more connection with the brand. They want more connection with people that they drink that coffee with. So those are the things that we're unlocking and can do it from a business standpoint on chain. Just like going back to what I mentioned before as a use case, we dropped an artist work to all the NFT holders wallet holders in one shot, and you just can't do that from a Web2 standpoint. So those are the things that I think are going to be unlocked and give businesses the ability to truly give value back to their customers, and that's the most important thing above all.
Well, Blur looks rare. XTY2 killed the royalty business model. That was nice for a little while, right? It seemed like everyone was going to have enough money to do whatever they wanted. I think, we, like you, looked into dropping more NFTs, right? But then you get into dilution and your original community gets less happy. You run into a lot of problems there with that. And so I think, context matters a lot. What we're doing is launching an accessible tier for non-crypto natives, right? 95% of golfers don't have a MetaMask wallet and they don't want one. So, having scalable, high-margin digital products that you can really bring to the masses that have utility, I think is absolutely the key in the next phase here. Throwing things on the blockchain and making them really fun and rewarding.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things that were discussed right there. I think most part, to your point, 95% of people don't have MetaMask, so custodial wallets end up becoming a thing where Starbucks is essentially a custodial wallet that's holding all of the rewards that's gotten through this Odyssey program and their collection of that. Now, when you look at marketing, I think this question is going to be geared towards how you can improve business efficiencies in a way that makes sense, or how you can use this tech to kind of develop your business a bit more. Now, my biggest, I would say, use case in the way that I look at this, and I preach this to everyone, is being wallet aware, being able to have experiences. I think the human condition is to be as easy as possible to get exactly what I want, which is why you have Google that's collecting your data and targeting you with ads that you're searching, because it's as easy as possible. This is actually what I want. This is how we go. How does that develop? That develops by doing wallet awareness, where now I control these assets, and I'm getting targeted for the assets that I hold in my wallet. As a company, that's great because you know exactly who your targeted market is, who your audience is. You can sell either that data to another company and make revenue off of the data and say you can target our audience directly because we know that they want this product or this use case, whatever that might be. So when I look at this scale of, okay, blockchain is great, not every company needs blockchain, but what are some things that really have some type of improvement? In my case, I really think marketing improves significantly once you can understand who's holding your asset, but you know, you can do that with too, right? You can do that with your database, you can have people create profiles on your website or something like that, but utilizing Web3 specifically or the blockchain, what are things that you think can improve efficiencies as a business and its entity as a whole, or maybe within some of the organizations like Links? What have you guys target marketed? Have you pushed out, you know, Callaway ads directly to your consumers? Like, what have you done? Has Callaway, you know, either purchased, they know your audience, so have they paid you to be like, hey, push this product out to the consumer? That's taking a Web2 revenue model and just kind of delineating it into Web3. Because ultimately, I think all Web3 revenue models are going to have Web2 backing, or going to utilize Web2, or you're just going to have to look at Web2 because it's tried and true and it stays there.
Great question.
You don't have to give us your secrets though.
No, it's totally cool. I know of at least 8 companies that are doing on-chain analytics for marketing intelligence, right? And then I know of 0 users who are checking their points of contact with that, right? One really hard thing to do is to get somebody who owns an Ethereum wallet. I can know your Ethereum address, but how do I send you a message? I don't know your email address, I don't have your name. I can airdrop you something into your wallet, but it's going to go to your spam folder, right? That's something that is really a blocker so that experiencing the kind of marketing utopia that on-chain information allows us to do. I think one thing we do see a lot of, and I'm sure this is true for other organizations, is having a dedicated community of fans in a specific demographic, early adopters, right, in a target demo, especially in golf. Right? Callaway does want to market test and ask questions to our community. Other golfers want to do product launches and test out their newest generation of golf ball with our community. Or they want to have them come out and test the newest club or go play a course, right? So the social proof for the market research background, I think that's immensely powerful. The thing we just need to improve upon is touch points. If NFTs are permissionless, if digital collectibles are permissionless, you can buy a token and I never have a point of contact with you, right? So that's something that these kind of walled gardens like Reddit and I think Starbucks have a really great way of accomplishing is you kind of know who your customer is and you're able to send them a message or give them a ping or a notification within your own ecosystem. So improving that more broadly across the ecosystem, I think will have an incredible effect.
As Cooper said, it's really difficult just to have somebody's wallet and market to them directly because that user interface that Google has is not there yet. But I think we're working on it. We're experimenting, and we're seeing different things. Starbucks side can't speak much for them on that particular question, but we have Discord. That's how we communicate with our users and everybody, all the super fans, the Starbucks drink lovers. So we use that obviously to leverage to be able to connect with them, and then of course they do have their wallets in the back end, so that we know what they have, what they don't have, and what they're interested in, so we can use that to curate experiences, because that's what it all ultimately comes down to for us. So from our standpoint, it'd be more physical. So if they walk into a store, again, this is unofficial, like just my thought process of the future of generally experiences, but like Starbucks could curate a different experience for somebody's 14, 15-year-old child versus the adult that's bringing them to a store. They can be playing games, drink, like Starbucks drink games and earning rewards or something like that for a cake pop. And the individual adult actually impersonating an adult beverage drink, latte, whatever it may be, they can be doing something else to be rewarded for stars for those drinks. So that's kind of the way we would see it. Again, unofficially, it's just my thoughts that something that could happen, and using all different types of things, whatever you want. Obviously, we're using AR right now, but it could be anything. We never saw AI coming so fast. At least I didn't, and now it's a thing. So those things are probably going to be more for the Starbucks ecosystem versus anything else.
I think there's limited value in using some of those tools that you mentioned to look at wallets and try to deduce information for marketing purposes. I mean, in the context of owning a LinksDAO NFT, we know they're a golfer most likely. But I think most of the time, if someone owns a Bored Ape, I know they have money, but what else do I know? Maybe where they use Coinbase or something. I think there's limited value there. In terms of where I do see value, I do see value in opening up new use cases with NFTs, making them dynamic and programmable. People don't realize that NFTs can change. You can change the metadata within an NFT to change an attribute, which could then have meaning internally to an organization or externally to a partner organization. That's something we're doing right now. So imagine an NFT when you go to the zoo and they give you a giraffe, but maybe you buy a membership and now it has a blue hat that says you're a member, and maybe you complete some type of gamified experience there and you earn a jacket, and maybe that jacket now becomes redeemable at their retail establishment and gets you 50% off, and then once you use it, that jacket disappears, right? So there's cool things you can do there, but I think it is going to be more internal to your company rather than someone querying the blockchain and getting all this awesome information that's going to open up a marketing utopia. I think it should be something that you do for yourself, for your own KPIs, and then open that up to partners once you kind of have figured it out.
Yeah, and I think I just want to touch on something that you said there, because being able to use that for business is fantastic. The ability to edit, modify an NFT to have all these different things, but if you take that and you scale that to healthcare, you can start to edit your healthcare history by primary care doctor's appointment on X date, next date, whatever I did, next date, whatever I did, and that can be stored with you in the sense that you can transfer all of your healthcare knowledge. I mean, obviously we're going to have to look at security and how that gets developed, but if I'm in a foreign country and something were to happen to me and they're who do I call? Do I call your doctor? How do I know what your history is? Are you diabetic? What are all the circumstances that we have? Is there a way that I can look at this digitally and just say, this is his history, he's approved this is what he has? And that, I think, has a powerful use case, and that's something that stores on blockchain permanently. It's there, and you can just continue to add to it. Take the same concept and apply it to cars. Whenever you get your car updated, whenever you take it into an inspection, you can use the same type of idea and translate it into different industries. And I think that that's super powerful, and I think that that is a future of innovation for what we are with blockchain and digital assets. Now, to conclude our panel here before we hop into Q&A, I want you guys to each kind of give one liner on yourself, maybe what you want people to know about you, action items where they can find you, takeaways, anything that's a tagline, something that what you do as a business that will drive people to you or to reach out and talk to you.
Yeah, sure. So we're looking to build experiences on top of wallets. So if you have a venue, an event, and you want to create a new experience for your customer or your audience and tie that into Web3, we're experience builders.
I love rewards. So I love loyalty rewards programs. I love experiences, and I think that's involving the community around that and getting people to care about that is my passion. So in the gamification portion, so those are my passion. Follow me on Twitter. It's Suarez 55 _. If you have any questions, always willing to talk. DMs are always open, and you can also find me at NFTPhilly.
Again, I'm Sherwin. on Twitter at CoopNFT. I did snag the @Cooper original Discord name, so with that rollout, I'm pretty stoked about that. You can find me there. But ultimately, I'm a community maxi, right? If you are interested in building out a really secure Discord, or you want a great customer community experience, TableC can help with that. We build out scratch Discords, we do security audits, and we design really great community experiences online in Monero.
Great, thank you. So I'm gonna open it up to Q&A. If anyone has any questions for any of our panelists here, I'll start with you.
Hi, let's start with Suarez.
George, yeah.
Yes, can you talk about experiences? Can you give me an example of an experience with Starbucks?
Yes, so the AR stuff with their drinks on the Starbucks logos, that's number one. They just got rolled out yesterday. So you can literally hold your phone up, and then there's avatars within the ecosystem currently. You can be a bear, you can be a hummingbird, you can be a Komodo dragon, and then you would hold your phone up, and then the Komodo dragon would roll out of the Starbucks logo, and then you could see their background and the geographical layout of that. So that would be something really small, and then you go into like one of our first journeys, which was a tour of the only coffee farm Starbucks owns is in Costa Rica. So obviously you can't get everybody to go to Costa Rica, but you can give them experience tours that they can guide themselves with, even as picking as your tour guide if you want a female or a male. And then you can have those experiences curated. So right now it's very general, but obviously as different things that we experiment with, we can curate those experiences individually to whatever that particular user has within their wallet. And those are the things that we're kind of working on and curating. And then of course, like, artist drops, things of that nature, giving them those type of experiences as well.
Any other questions from the audience?
For Cooper, why did you start in Scotland? Or was that just like first available?
It's a great question. So we launched in January 2022 and sold out, raised all this money, and realized none of us had ever bought a golf course before. So we dove in, we've got some great partnerships and tried to find out how to do that. We had active conversations with 125 different golf course owners or organizations within the United States, and got into deep due diligence on about 20 of them before being sent this opportunity in Scotland. Main reason is price. It was eminently affordable relative to US golf course real estate, and a good opportunity to prove ourselves, test our ideas, and get good at it. Plus, it's an immaculate piece of property. 13 of the 18 holes are right along the ocean. It has a great history, and we think the upside after putting a little bit of investment into it can be, top 100 in UK golf. So that is why we made the decision. Obviously, 80% of our members are US, and we do intend to open or acquire a US golf course this year. Just a matter of time and figuring that out.
A question probably for Cooper and Suarez. In your two type of community offerings, have you guys been under pressure of potentially launching these products with a promise of profit? Because that's one of the how we test problems, securities and whatnot in the United States. I'm curious if you have been explicit in language or how you address those things to try to meet potential regulatory standards that may come around.
Links membership is not a security. Absolutely been very, very explicit from the beginning. It's just a membership.
So I think that's a great question. But there's two dynamics there involved. Number one, you got the DGen Web3s that only want to flip. So we're not curating our ecosystem around that. Of course, there's involvement there, and they're probably one of the earliest adopters, and they're early adopters. However, that's not security. There's nothing there for them particularly, so they will get upset about a stamp or something, a journey that they did. It doesn't 10x. You know what I mean? There's going to be some pushback there, but our goal was never to curate experiences for that type of user. Although we're very thankful for that individual, but it's always been our Genesis program. The mom that lives the suburbs and goes to Starbucks. So that's pretty much a clientele. And of course that's what we're looking for and curating experiences around. She wants, or that individual might want, again, more experiences while they're at their Starbucks versus just getting a stamp and earning that stamp and then flipping it for 3x.
I guess a first for follow-up on that too. For Cooper, in the initial launch of LinksDAO, was there ever any talks about members having potential equity in a golf course, which would be like a token share? Was that ever discussed, or was that something you guys just didn't want to have?
Sure. So within the first 2 weeks prior to launch, we ideated in an open Google document, and a lot of these ideas were thrown around by potential and future members. We were very, very clear to work with some great attorneys before we had our mint. That had very, very clear terms of sale. We communicated to the Discord and we said, hey, these are not equity, they give no ownership rights, these are purely memberships that give you access to the community. As a DAO, we've had to find out where that line is, right? And right now the DAO advises and makes governance decisions on all non-business decisions, and all business decisions or financial spend are at the discretion of the court. So there's a symbiosis there. The two entities have to work together, but we've been very clear that owning an NFT doesn't give you an ownership share of the golf course. We did, however, open up a angel list investment round for members to participate in separately in the equity of the corporation. So we want our members to be involved and have upside when it's appropriate, but the NFTs are not associated directly with that.
I'd be curious for the legal panel later, because something that I've heard within the market is if your NFT holders, you can 1099 them, which essentially is doxing all of your NFT holders, and treat them as contractors.
We do that.
Theoretically, you could do it.
We have DAO contributors who get paid. We have closing on 100. We have 50 in our first year, and we're getting to 100 DAO contributors who, earn payments in USDC, or if they prefer, direct to their bank account as contractors, which is fun, but definitely for their work, not just because they're token holders.
Yeah, now you get to the point on what classifies a contractor and what is the work that you're doing for your entity, and then you can really try to go and navigate. But the SEC has strong laws, and of course there's certain circumstances around that. And no one in Web3 wants to dox themselves, so there's definitely that as well. But
Golfers don't mind. It's interesting. Yeah.
different strokes for different folks, I guess. So that's the shares. Any other questions for the audience?
Yes, I have a question for you, Scott. Have you seen any successful use cases for dynamic NFTs currently?
That's a great question. So I know. So he asked, I think Tyrone asked, have I seen any successful use cases for dynamic NFTs recently? And so dynamic NFTs are relatively new. There was a recent project, and I'm forgetting the name. It was like maybe checks, where like the checks would change based upon like you could merge them and so on and so forth, and they would change colors. And it's a pretty cool project. I don't necessarily follow it too much, but I know that was one of the more successful ones. Chainlink has made a push for dynamic NFTs as well. So there are a ton of use cases. It's just a matter of, again, context, like what works for you. It doesn't have to be a collectible, this could be something else. So limited success so far.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, I have a question. Do you think CryptoPunks should be considered dynamic? Because I know that the background color changes depending upon sales status. So if they're up for sale, I don't remember what the colors are, but would that be considered a dynamic use case, or is that just an attribute of what CryptoPunks offer?
I didn't know that Punk's background changes when they're up for sale.
I didn't know that because
It's when you wrap
I ended up in a Google hole somewhere and shut up on there.
It's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, he said
So like, it's
So like you said, it's all like,
It's a wrap.
So it's not a true dynamic.
Yeah, so a dynamic NFT is just, you can change the metadata, and then the metadata can effectively change the imagery or the permissions attached to that NFT. So,
Yeah, just back on the dynamic NFT stuff, do you foresee any scrutiny just about like, having upgradable assets and whatnot, like in general?
well, I mean, it depends on mindset, right? So a lot of times people think of NFTs as collectibles, right? Collectibles probably shouldn't change, right? Like you have a one-on-one, that's it's something special that probably shouldn't change. But you know, the way that I think of NFTs is like the amount of use cases you can open up by making them dynamic. Like think of a membership. Like how many memberships in your life do you pay one time and that's it, that you're a member for life, right? I can't think of any. Usually you have to pay like a monthly due, or like you have to meet some type of requirement over and over again. Like that right there becomes a dynamic NFT where here's your membership, but if you don't upgrade it, it maybe falls into like a default status. Or maybe you upgrade it into another level and it moves up, and then that can be representative in the metadata itself or the imagery on the NFT itself. And then as a business, as an entity, you can then attach those permissions. And even outside of that entity, now you know with a high degree of certainty that this person has X level of membership, and because of our partnership with them, like they'll get access to this within our entity as well. So cool.
I think, just to touch on that a little bit, what I think is really interesting is when you talk about Web3 maxis, everyone's like immutable NFTs, don't touch the metadata after it's launched, why would you do that? But when you talk about the narratives, like if Starbucks ended up doing that because of their initiative and it's all in an enclosed ecosystem, they can really develop whatever they want and nobody's going to complain, in my opinion. I mean, of course, I don't know the community like that, somebody always complains, but I do think that that's really interesting. There is also contracts that are, from what I observed, eat over time. So they'll expire after 60 days or whatever the case may be if you don't feed it ETH. So a good example is a project called ETH Gobblers, where if you didn't feed it X amount of ETH, your NFT would die. Now, if you extrapolate that in terms of like a subscription model where you're now paying a monthly subscription, and if you don't pay by the end of the month, it automatically cancels, it's the exact same thing. Except, you know, why would you end up navigating that route? Because it's much more costly to do it in that method than the normal Web2 method, but the options are there, and then taking that same technology, methodology, smart contracts, and applying it to different narratives is definitely an approach to go. So.
One thing to add there is like a lot of times you don't need Web3.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. You don't. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. Like
one thing to add on that, one, you pay for the thing one time and then perpetually lasts for a lifetime. The economics of them are really weird because you don't know what the asset's going to be in the future, right? So if you were to pay for like big bank digital NFT collectible, and today it's worth maybe like $1,000, but maybe in 20 years it's actually worth less or more. Like that's what some of these perpetual like NFT pricing type models go into, but it's really you can't guarantee the future performance. So you're kind of taking a risk on what that asset will be in terms of the future.
Well, we need revenue models. So I mentioned that earlier. Like, you know, it's great to launch a community and use an NFT to raise capital, to gather like-minded people towards a purpose. But then what? That only lasts so long. Like, you need to be able to sustain it, and oftentimes that has to do with money, too. Money or passion, right? Like, there are organizations and communities that people are so passionate about, they don't care. They're just going to contribute their time and dollars towards that. But the majority of these organizations, communities, whatever you want to call them, groups on Discord, they need to find some type of product market fit and generate revenue, otherwise they just won't be around.
exactly. So we are pushing time here, so I do want to give a round of applause to our panelists.